Hi everyone, it's Mike. I was up at Colomendy 5 or 6 weeks ago, 20th of March. Or was it the 19th or the 20th of March? I was up there with my mate, and we had another look at the farm. And it's still in a state of absolute sort of dereliction, you know. In fact, it's worse now than the last time I was up there, which was towards the end of 2019. And it's actually worse. Kings would have dumped more rubbish there. I took some film of it on this camera, but accidentally deleted the film. But I just want to tell you it's gone worse. Kings would have dumping rubbish there again, which goes against the Denbigh County Council's, it breaches what's called hygiene. It breaches it. And rubbish dumping, it's wrong. I don't know the exact words for it, but it goes against what the Denbigh County Council promote. The Denbigh County Council know about this and just don't care. The Liverpool City Council know about it and won't do anything. And I can't get through or talk to the council anymore because they simply won't talk to me. The council just think, so what? What can we do now? We're not going to spend any money out on these old buildings, irrespective of the fact that these buildings are part of the Colomendy Hall, which is a Grade 2 listed building, you know. It's just like if you go to Croxteth Country Park, which I've said on another video on this channel. If you go to Croxteth Country Park, it has a home farm. Well, that's what the farm was. That belonged to the Colomendy Hall. That was the home farm of the Colomendy Hall. And like I've said before, Richard Wilson, the famous artist, died at Colomendy Hall. If you look him up on the internet, you'll see. And, it was obviously the home of landed gentry. And it's very historic. And the farm is very historic. And even on the farm, there's the barn is Grade 2 listed, as I've said in other videos here. And the buildings that are falling down are attached to the barn. But it doesn't matter. The barn's falling down anyway. But like you see on the other video I've put up, they put scaffolding around the buildings, some of the buildings there, but the scaffolding's been there for a year or two, and it's just sort of like, even the wood now is starting to discolour on the scaffolding, and the galvanised scaffolding tubes, they're starting to discolour because they've been there that long and they've done absolutely nothing. And as the storms come, as they do there, you get severe storms there because it's on a plateau. They come raging through the Allen Valley, and they hit that plateau and they blow the roofs off the buildings and everything. And that's what's happened. It's all storm damage, as well as you've had kids going there, and there's kids have been wrecking the place as well. You've got 20 or 12 or 20 community councillors. They're like church hall councillors in England, but they call them community councillors up there. They're not elected members for the council. They sit in there and they know all about it because I went up there a few years ago and told them. One of the councillors for that area, he knows about it. And also, the assembly member up there, the Welsh assembly member, knows about it. I don't know if it's the same fella now, but I think it is. And they all know about it and they're doing absolutely nothing because they're just saying, well, these are just a load of old buildings. Granted, they care to the buildings, to a Grade 2 listed building, but we don't care about that. But the worst thing is Cadw, the Welsh history people, they don't care. And, it became apparent to me when I was campaigning against this, that the fact that Kingswood had breached their lease, that they never had a clue about the lease anyway, Kingswood, to be honest with you. And it wasn't, they didn't know what was in the lease because probably the guy who was running the place had never seen the lease, and the Liverpool City Council changed over. That place was obviously, the lease was signed in 2007 when the Liberal Democrats were running the Liverpool City Council, but 3 years later in 2010 they lost and Labour took over. So since 2010, Labour wasn't even going up there to check it. Labour wasn't even aware of the lease. It took them quite a while to dig the lease up. They sent it to me by mistake, that's why I've got it. And it took them ages just to find out where the lease was. They sent it to me on a PD something software, you know. But anyway, to cut a long story short, it took them a while to find a lease. So in the 8 years or so, well, I think it was 2016 I started campaigning against this, 2015, 2016. In all those years, you know, the Labour Council hadn't even gone up, and practiced good practice by checking the place out and checking that the covenants on the lease were being adhered to by Kingswood. That's what they should have done. They should have sent an officer up there, a council officer, annually to check up that the covenants which were contained within the lease were being adhered to by Kingswood. And they didn't. They never went anywhere near the place, near Colomendy. And Kingswood, you know, obviously the guy who was running Kingswood never had a clue about the lease. He probably never even saw the lease. And the council didn't know anything about the lease because it took them ages to find it when I put complaints in. And this situation is absolute incompetence, and it's not good practice. You know, we're talking about a massive site here, 135 acres or so large, you know, and they just let parts of it fall down. And like I've said before, when that lease was signed, the Colomendy Hall and the farm should have been separate from that lease. The council should have still kept hold of that and done something else with that, you know, because they kept hold of, like I've said before, they haven't demolished the farm on Croxteth Country Park, have they, in Liverpool, which used to be Lord Sefton's home. You know, Lord Molyneux, the Earl of Sefton, that used to be his home. And obviously when he died, it went over to the Liverpool City Council, and it's a park now. And Croxteth Hall, people can go visit it, and the gardens there that they had. And also they still have the greenhouses and everything there, you know, and the farm is still there, you know, because it was called the home farm. But sadly, you know, up in Colomendy Hall, which obviously was landed gentry, I mean, Richard Wilson, the most famous artist in Wales, died at Colomendy Hall. He used to sit in that garden in front of the farm, overlooking, you know, the Allen Valley and the Clwydian Range. It's beautiful because it's up on a plateau. And he used to paint pictures there. You know, he used to paint pictures. And isn't it sad? The state it's in now, if you went there and seen it. And as I've said before, if you look on the latest video that I did up there, you'll see the state of it. It hasn't changed much since then, except it's gone worse. Kingswood are dumping more rubbish on there, which, as I said before, it goes against the council laws on dumping rubbish on the site, and it obviously breaches the lease because there's covenants within the lease about the dumping of rubbish. Rubbish should not be dumped on there. It goes against health and safety with the Denbigh County Council, but the Denbigh County Council don't care. What they're doing now is they'll use the coronavirus as an excuse to do nothing, you know, just like Liverpool City Council used the government cuts to the council to do nothing. I mean, I spoke to, at the time, there was a councillor on the cabinet who was responsible for this, Jane Kennedy's ex-husband, Malcolm Kennedy. I don't know whether he still sits on the cabinet. This was a few years ago when I first started campaigning against this. And he said to me, "You're the only one banging on about it." In other words, the council don't care. You know, and I can understand where he's coming from. But, you know, a lease has been breached here, but it's been breached in ignorance. I accept that, because the manager of the camp probably never even looked at it. I mean, if the council, it took them ages to find it. The camp probably never even had a copy of the lease. You know, Kingswood's main office, because they own other businesses, probably did, but not the camp. Well, I'm surmising that. That's in my opinion. And this is the situation that we're in. And nobody cares. The other Colomendy guys still go up there and have their annual meetings up there. The ex-Colomendy, you know, students like myself who used to go there when it was a boarding school. It closed down in 1992, I think it shut down. It's just sad, really, you know, because it was a beautiful place. That farm was there for years, and it had the animals it had on it. You know, obviously the Jersey cows, because they were small cows, because children were dealing with them. They had small cows, pigs, every single thing you can think of. This is a huge farm. It wasn't a small farm. It was massive. Sheep, everything was there. Pigs, chickens, everything. It was unbelievable. Sows. And when I look back at my time there, I really cherish my time at Colomendy. And one of the greatest things about Colomendy for me at that time was that farm. I learned such a lot from it, which has helped me in my adult life. I mean, I've retired now, but I used to have a business, and everything I used to do was what I'd learned at Colomendy. Some people left Colomendy around about the same time as me and became millionaires, you know, and it's really sad. Some people there, you know, the Real Thing, that group, The Real Thing, it got #1 hits years ago. The guy, the lead singer, Chris Amu, he went there. I mean, he was about a year older than me. He went there, and I believe he still lives on a bit of a farm now up in Wales, you know, because it had such an effect on him. You know, he used to have dogs, used to be in crufts and all that. Loves animals, Chris Amu. And I'm the same, you know, what I learned on that farm is unbelievable from that teacher there, Jimmy Kane. They used to call him Jimmy Kane, you know, Mr. Kane. What a teacher, the agricultural teacher. This guy, you know, he fought in the Second World War. He's long dead now, but he fought in the Second World War. I'm not sure, but I think he went into Arnhem. You know, a bridge too far. I think he went in there and he got out again. Incredible fella, toughest guy I've ever seen in my life. Like a father to me. I don't know what happened to his son. His son was a great guy. He took over the farm when his dad retired, and he kept it going until 1992, and then, you know, all the animals were sold off. So I don't know what happened to his son. I went up there when I was doing the campaign and tried to find him in the area and asked people about him in the local pubs, but nobody knew where he was. But I believe his sister still lives up there somewhere. And I spoke to a farmer who knew her, but I couldn't make contact with her. But I don't think they'd be interested anyway, because it's all a long time ago now. And people are just saying, well, there's so much damage being done to that farm that you can't repair it anyway. It's a waste of time. And even though there's a grade 2 listed building there, the Cartridge buildings, that we couldn't repair them. And what would be the use of them even if we did? I mean, I can understand that. But the fact of the matter is, a lease was breached. But people will tell you, well, it was breached in ignorance, you know, and Kingswood is still there. And, you know, if you go to Company's House, Kingswood have never made a penny, you know, since they've been there. And the money that the Liverpool City Council spent on that place, they spent their own money. They even used lottery money, you know. And a lottery aren't supposed to give money to a business. So how they got round that was they made Kingswood the operators of that camp, you know. So Kingswood don't own it; they're the operators. They've signed a lease, but they're the operators. The Liverpool City Council still own it, but they're doing nothing about it. Sometimes, you know, something so beautiful, even if it loses money, it's still worth keeping, you know. Because, you know, parks, you can't say, well, listen, we're going to close Sefton Park down because it's not making any money. They're public amenities. They should be paid for by public funding. They shouldn't be there to make a profit. But that's what the Liberal Democrat Council thought they would do. And at that particular time, you know, Joe Anderson, who's now the mayor of Liverpool, he was dead against it, you know, which you'll see in the first film. The sound's a bit bad in the very first film I made, because I had the camera on the wrong settings and I didn't know how to set the camera. But I might redo that video again and put it up, you know. But the sound's a bit bad on it, you know what I mean? I mean, I've got a lot better at editing since I've done that film. But, you know, Joe Anderson, he didn't want it to go into the private sector, to be run by a private sector company. It's not in the private, they still own it, but it's run by a private sector company. Neither did the Bishop of Liverpool at that time, the Reverend James Jones. I tried to make contact with him, but he doesn't want to know. They're untouchable people who live, in ivory towers. They live in ivory towers up there. You can't get in touch with them, you know what I mean? And the new Bishop of Liverpool, he wouldn't even speak to me, you know, the new Church of England Bishop. And as for the Catholic Bishop, I don't even know who he is. They're not really interested. You've got to remember that these people all work in collusion with each other, you know. The historic people, Cadw, you know, these are the people who are supposed to protect Welsh history. They don't want to know. They stopped speaking to me. They used to hang the phone up on me when I rang them up. The Liverpool City Council served me with a letter that they wouldn't deal with me anymore. Unreasonable behaviour letter. which is on the first film if you watch it. The Liverpool Echo don't want to know. They told lies in the first article, because the Liverpool Echo have always worked to the maxim that nothing must be said or done that can harm the name of the Liverpool City Council. And the Echo have always worked to that maxim. Now you've got to remember, these people work in collusion. The media, the local media does. Radio Merseyside, I rang them up. They won't let me on anymore. They've barred me off Radio Merseyside. And I spoke to Radio City, because I used to have my own show on Radio City. Not my own show, but I appeared on a guy's show for 20 minutes a week, live on his show. And I did speak to one of the guys on Radio City, and he got a guy on who worked for Kingswood, who just blasted me, and they gave him more airtime than me. And when I tried to come in and say something, they'd shut my mic off so he couldn't hear me anyway. And this is what they do on the radio. And this is the way that it is. It's totally unfair. As an ordinary citizen, as a one-off person who wants to know the truth and wants to tell people what's really going on, you've got no voice in this country. It's supposed to be a democracy, but you've got no freedom of speech in this country. See, this coronavirus now, when it all dies down, let's hope it dies down soon, because there's a lot of people dying at the moment. Over 800 people a day are dying. It's 15,000 people now, because of the Conservative government's incompetence. We are now the third or fourth highest country in the world for deaths, even more than China, where it originated from. And this is the situation because we handled it wrong. We've done all sorts of things wrong. We haven't got any equipment. You can't get a mask or anything now. You can't get a visor. You can't get anything to protect yourself from this virus. But, in Liverpool, at present, the death toll is 240 or something like that. But there's 500,000 people who live in Liverpool. But one death is enough. Some people say, well, 240 odd isn't a lot, is it? But one is a lot. You've only one person who dies of coronavirus. But they'll use the coronavirus to stop us from meetings, to stop people from gathering together. And this will go on for years, They'll use it to their own advantage. The state machine will. The state will, and that's the way they are. The government will, to silence us, just like they're doing now at local government, the way they're silencing me over this Colomendy issue, and the way the Echo does. Remember, they all work in collusion with each other. The historic people, I couldn't believe it, up in Wales, who were supposed to protect Welsh history, they're working in collusion with the Denbigh County Council. The Denbigh County Council are working in collusion with the Liverpool City Council, and this the way that it goes. And they're just silencing people in whatever way they can. It's unbelievable. It doesn't surprise me. A lot of the people who run these councils and work in the councils are narcissistic anyway. They're narcissists. It doesn't bother them. They don't have any empathy. A lot of the senior council officers are narcissistic careerists. No empathy with anyone. They don't care. They've been sucked into the methodology that they use, and into the bureaucratic nature of the running of the councils, which, are narcissistic. And I've always said that MPs and council officers and all these people who are at the top, there should be a test for narcissism and for psychopathy and for sociopathy, because a lot of these people are psychopaths, sociopaths and narcissists that are running the councils throughout the country. And that's the way things are, and we have to live with this, It doesn't really bother me what's going on, because I'm used to it, This is the way councils operate right throughout the country. They're all corrupt, and they believe that what they're doing is correct. But I'm still going to keep an eye on Colomendy Camp. As I said, I filmed it in March, but I accidentally deleted the film on this camera, but it doesn't matter. If you look at the film before this film, it's similar to that anyway, except it's gone worse for the rubbish dumping, which contravenes Denbigh County Council laws on health and safety. But you got to remember, they never practice good practice now. The councils aren't into good practice, because they claim, they're having all their funding cut and stuff like that. But anyway, I could go on for ages about this, but Colomendy was a great place. I have nothing but fond memories about Colomendy, Also about that farm, some of the times I spent there I was at Colomendy for 2 or 3 years. I think it was 3 years I was there, and the times I had in that place, and I remember Colomendy with fondness. All the teachers there, the supervisors, especially Mr. Kane. Yet there's a lot of people who went there who hated Mr. Kane and hated the teachers there. But even though these guys were tough, I respected them, and they've certainly they reflected my life today. What I learned from them, and all of them were honest, though. They believed in honesty, Anyway, let's hope they do something. Let's see what I'll still keep going up there, and I'll still keep checking it out, and see what they get up to as the time goes by, and I'll give you the dates and all that. But thanks anyway. I'll see you.